Hey there. Welcome to Radio Face. As always, my name is Daniel Trinham, and I will be your host. It is truly an honor that you have decided to tune in for today's episode, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Before we begin today's episode, I want to let you know that this show is in no way affiliated with the other show that I host, The Third Seat. However, if you'd like to check out The Third Seat, then you can find the information and links for it in the description of today's episode. I think you will really enjoy it as well, so I highly recommend you check it out. Along with this, you can find all other links to my social media accounts, as well as any necessary information for any guests that may join me on the show, or myself, down in the description of today's episode. With all that being said, I want to thank you again for listening in to today's episode. Now let's jump into the conversation. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. My name is Daniel Trinham. I will be your host for this episode as always. Thank you just for tuning into this episode. Today is going to be another iteration of this small series where it's just me, titled Sincerely Yours Truly, where I'm going to be just talking about different things that I've been wanting to talk about, some things that I have thoughts on, and hopefully you all enjoy it and find it interesting. So, let's just go ahead and jump into it then. I don't think there's any major personal updates or anything. We'll just go ahead and jump into it. So, for a little bit of context for what I want to talk about today. So I work and live here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I work at an accounting firm here in town, and not to go too in deep with the job responsibilities of what I do and just what I do on a day-to-day basis regarding my job. But to put it lightly, a big part of my job requires me to it requires me to research different individuals and to, pick different candidates, I guess would be the right word. Not that I don't hire or fire people, but picking different candidates for different things and just basically researching people out in the public to see if they would be a good candidate for the things that I do. I work in marketing, so I interact with the public a lot. I do things that are in the public eye regarding the company a lot. And so I work alongside individuals that, they're also in the marketing department. And I do a lot of things that, affect the company in a sense out in the open, if that makes sense. And so, a big part of what I do is I research people. I use social media a lot to find different individuals for different reasons. And for better or for worse, one of the social media platforms that I use to research people and to find, people that might be good candidates for, like at work, I host a podcast. I also host a podcast at work called The Third Seat. Go check it out. I will research and see if people on LinkedIn and on different social media sites are good candidates to be on the show. And one of those sites, for better or for worse, is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is something that I've had for a while. I've had it for years now, but I haven't used it to the fullest extent that I use it now up until the point whenever the podcast at work started. And LinkedIn is an interesting, if you're on the outside looking in at LinkedIn, it can be very easy to be like, what is this thing, because you look at like Facebook, you look at Twitter, Instagram, by and large, I mean, they do it in different ways, but they are social media platforms for people just to share their lives. Facebook, it wasn't the original social media, but it was kind of the original one that really took off and became, the foundation of what social media is now. And it's essentially just a place for people to put their thoughts on anything. They can post pictures. They can post their thoughts on different things. It's a way for people to share their lives. And then whenever, like I was in high school, Twitter was really big. And I mean, I guess it still is to this day. I don't use Twitter anymore personally, but Twitter is still pretty big. Currently, there's the whole saga going on with Elon and Twitter. And so that definitely keeps Twitter in the news. And then you have Instagram, and there are other social media platforms. I'm not going to act like those are the only ones, but those are kind of the major ones in my opinion. TikTok has really come up nowadays, and it's a whole other monster in and of itself. But still, I mean, TikTok is also a place for people to share their lives and to share insight into what they do, and just post things about their life as they see fit. LinkedIn is a social media platform, yes, but it's entirely different in theme than the other ones. The best way to equate LinkedIn, I think, is probably pretty similar to, I would say, Facebook, in the way it feels, using it, because it's you can post long or short form. You can connect, quote unquote, with people, and like on Facebook, you become friends with someone. Instead of becoming friends, you quote unquote connect with someone on LinkedIn. And the idea with LinkedIn is, instead of connecting with someone, or in the instance of Facebook, becoming friends with someone, instead of doing that just for the sake of doing it, the idea is that you're supposed to be able to approach these connections from more of a business or professional mindset. On Facebook, you may just add someone as a friend because you know them. On LinkedIn, you're supposed to connect with them because you may work with them, or because you might want to get to know them more and understand what they do as a job, or you may have a business idea that you want to share with them. It's all built upon this idea that these connections are made to expand your network, and I laugh a little bit when I say that, because the term network and networking has just been ingrained into my head from my years in school. So LinkedIn, if you're not in the, if you don't use LinkedIn all the time, LinkedIn can seem like an odd kind of thing to look at from the outside looking in. My dad actually one time, shout out to my dad. Hopefully he's listening to this. He texted me one time and was like, or he texted me or called me, and he was like, "Hey, do you use LinkedIn?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, what is it exactly? And I kind of gave him the rundown of everything I've been describing so far, and told him, what it is, what it's about. And for context, I mean, my dad, he's been working in the same career field for decades now. He is a physician. He's been working at the same place for a long time. He's very well established. He knows what he's doing. He's not, to my understanding, he's not looking for a job change anytime soon. And so he asked me, he was like, "Is this something that you think would be beneficial for me to look into?" And I told him, I said, it's up to him at the end of the day. I told him, I was like, it's up to you, but I don't think for him it would make sense, just because I don't see him needing to expand his network, quote unquote, or make these connections. He's at a point where he's not really trying to, I don't think he's trying to start a business anytime soon. I don't think he's trying to, just expand his network for, one reason or another. He's more just trying to continue his career, work where he works, and get better at what he does. And so that's why I say for each individual, it's going to be different. For me, my job doesn't necessitate it. But where I'm at in my career, the work that I do, it's very beneficial for me to have this kind of online presence, an ability to meet new people, to connect with people, and to learn more about what they do from a professional standpoint. However, if I was towards the latter years of my career and was just trying to finish it out and wasn't really trying to bring on exponential growth or wasn't trying to connect with new individuals, there's not really a huge reason for you to be on LinkedIn, in my opinion. Along with this, LinkedIn is the reason why I said at the beginning of this, I'm on LinkedIn for better or for worse, is because LinkedIn is definitely a two-sided sword, or double-edged sword, I guess is the way it goes, in the sense that the pros of LinkedIn is that you really can meet a lot of new people that you would not meet otherwise. Or I say meet loosely. I mean, a lot of these people that I connect with on LinkedIn, I don't meet them in person. But still, it can be it's much easier to find people in a similar field that you work in, or like, say let's say for instance, you are starting a bakery in town and you want to get connected with other bakers in town, or you want to get connected with people that are looking to become bakers in town. You just want to get more ingrained in that circle. LinkedIn is a great way to do that because you can search people by location and by their profession, by the work that they do. And in that sense, LinkedIn, I think, is a great tool. I think it's a great way for people to, become more ingrained in the in different professional fields. It allows them to learn more about the fields that they want to potentially work in or be a part of. And I think that is really a great way. I think LinkedIn can be a great tool in that regard. If you truly want to learn more about different fields, if you want to learn more about, different people in different professional fields in your area or in different areas, or if you're just wanting to meet new people, whatever. I think LinkedIn is a great tool for that. However, I've had this conversation with my now fiance many times. LinkedIn is such a on the downside. LinkedIn can be such a just cesspool of some of the most insufferable people, and I'm being very harsh, but I'll explain what I mean here in just a minute. Some of the most, in my opinion, insufferable parts of social media you will ever encounter, because since LinkedIn is a platform that prioritizes, it's different, from like other social medias in the sense that you're not just posting about your life, but you're posting about your work. And inherently, with the structure of work that we all live and work in, we are incentivized to do better. We are incentivized to compete with our fellow peers. We are incentivized to exceed expectations and to go higher than those around us, which isn't a terrible thing, but it can very easily lead to individuals to have inflated egos. It can allow them to have just massive amounts of pride. And the way I dub it is LinkedIn can very quickly become a spitting contest with all that are involved very, very quickly. And just like any other, I mentioned TikTok earlier. TikTok has become notorious for its algorithm. LinkedIn is the same way. It has a algorithm, from what I can tell, that definitely incentivizes people to post about how they. It's hard to describe, but you'll have individuals who try to make everything some pseudo motivational post about how different. You'll have. Let me back up a little bit. You'll have individuals who will post things, and it will be these like pseudo motivational posts, or you'll have individuals who want to post about the fact that they are just these great businessmen or great businesswomen who are just killing the game all the time, when at times, it can come off as somewhat of a humble brag, or it can come off as very, very egotistical. It's a platform that rewards individuals to talk about themselves and talk about their own personal achievements, which aren't always bad things. I'm not saying we can't ever talk about the things that we're proud of, but you can see how it can quickly divulge into, oh, look how great I am, look how great we are. If you're not doing this, then you're doing it wrong. If you're doing things this way, then you're doing it wrong. It can very quickly divulge into that. And that is the thing that has led me to talk about what I want to talk about today. Because if you use LinkedIn, and you don't have to download LinkedIn to see this, but I'll try to describe it for you. On LinkedIn, there is a headlines tab, similar to other social media websites, where it'll tell you about the biggest stories as of late and the biggest stories in the world. And I remember one day I was using LinkedIn and I was just looking around at different people and doing different things on it. And I saw one of the headlines, and it said something about this guy who, and before I do anything, I don't think anyone would do this that's listening to this podcast, but just as a disclaimer, if you're listening to this, don't take this as a reason to go and harass this individual, or as a reason to go and bash this individual I'm going to talk about. I'm sure they're a nice person. I'm sure they mean well, and I would imagine that if they were in the room with me right now, they would be an individual that's nice to be around, and is someone that I would get along with. But everything I'm going to say from this point on is from a humble point of view of critique, and hopefully I can offer not just critique, but I can also offer some solutions for the future. I don't want to just be an individual that says, "Oh, this is a bad thing," and then not offer any ways to hopefully remedy that problem. I want to be someone who can point out an issue, point out a problem, and hopefully in the future, or hopefully offer a solution for this problem in the future. So I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and I saw a tab for one of the headlines that described the quote unquote crying CEO. Now, at first when I saw this, I was just curious. I was like, okay, what's this all about? And I clicked on it, and this happened about a month ago, as of the time of this recording, about a month ago. So, this isn't like breaking news or anything, but it was basically this guy. His name is Braden Walicki, I think is how you say it. And he is the CEO of a company called Hypersocial. Now, I don't know exactly what Hypersocial does, but from what I can find online, it is a Columbus, Ohio-based marketing services firm. And that can mean a lot of things, but I would imagine it's some kind of online marketing firm, something to that degree. And basically what happened is he had a LinkedIn account, and he posted something on LinkedIn that had just gone ballistically viral. It just was everywhere, at least on LinkedIn. I don't know how much is translated into other social medias, but again, since I was on LinkedIn, I saw it and looked into it. And so what had happened is this guy, he posted a picture, and the picture is, you can look it up if you'd like to see it. I'll link the article I'm looking at right now to the description of this episode. So if you'd like to check it out, you can see it. But he posted a picture of himself, and in the picture, he's sitting down. He is looking straight into the camera. He's kind of got his hand, close to his mouth, just up next to his mouth on his chin or so. And his eyes are bloodshot red, and you can tell that he has been crying or is crying. There's tears on the side of his face. There's, his eyes are red. He just looks like he's not having a good time, to put it lightly. And so he posts this picture on his page, and the accompanying caption goes as also, I'm recording really close to my door on my apartment, and there's some noise outside, so I apologize if you can hear that, but just bear with me. But anyways, he posts this picture, and this is the caption that goes along with it. It says, "This will be the most vulnerable thing I'll ever share. I've gone back and forth whether to post this or not. we just had to lay off a few of our employees. I've seen a lot of layoffs over the last few weeks on LinkedIn. Most of those are due to the economy or whatever other reason. Ours, my fault. I made a decision in February and stuck with that decision for far too long. Now, I know my team will say that we made that decision together, but I am the one that led into it. And because of those failings, I had to do today the toughest thing I've ever had to do. We've always been a people-first business, and we always will be. Days like today, I wish I was a business owner that was only money-driven and didn't care about who he hurt along the way, but I'm not. And that is the accompanying caption to the photo of him crying. And so, like I said, I'll link this article in the description for this episode. Actually, also one thing of note. So I remember looking at this online when it first came out, and just out of curiosity, I've been looking this guy up to see if I can find him on LinkedIn still, and I don't know. I can't seem to find him. That's the crazy thing. I don't know if he maybe deleted his account or I don't know, but I can't seem to find him on LinkedIn anymore. I know that he posted a follow-up post after this one to kind of elaborate some more on it, but nevertheless, this was the original post that kind of took LinkedIn and other parts of the internet by storm. And so naturally, there have been a lot of, as he mentioned in this post, there have been a lot of layoffs as of lately, specifically, in the tech sector and kind of in the online services sector. There've been a lot of layoffs as of late. I know companies like Snapchat have laid off large portions of their employee base. I know a lot of like online crypto companies have laid off a lot of different employees, and that's there's a lot of different reasons for that, but that's just been the landscape of things right now. And so there were a lot of very passionate responses to this post, to put it lightly. A lot of individuals were really tearing into this guy just based on the optics of this. I'm not going to read, all the responses to you right now, but I would say there was like an 80-20 mix of 80% of people were very much not happy with this post. And about 20% or so were trying to be empathetic towards this guy or even supportive of this guy. And again, let me, remind everyone, like, this guy, I'm not here to like demonize him or to tear him down. I want to more show an example of what I think would have been a better response in the future for any individuals that are listening to this or anyone that may find themselves in a similar situation. Because the reality is, I'm not a CEO of a business right now. I don't know if I ever will be. That's not necessarily a goal I'm shooting for, but things can change in the future, I suppose. And we live in a world where layoffs happen sometime. It's a part of the world we live in, for better or for worse. It's a part of the economy that we live in and just the way things are structured. It's a thing that happens, and it's never a fun thing. 99% of the time, it is not something that really anybody wants to have to go through. And so part of me is very glad to see, at least on the surface, that this guy who is the CEO of a company, I'm assuming a company that's been growing a lot, he seems to be very upset about the fact that he had to let people off. Now, I don't know how many people he laid off, or really any of the details of how they were laid off necessarily, but the fact that he at least seems like he is, it's not an easy thing for him to do, is, I think, a good thing. I think that's a good model to emulate, in the sense that no one wants to be laid off, but no one wants to be laid off by an individual who seems cold or who seems like they really don't care about the impact of you being laid off. So I think in that aspect, it's, at least from what I can tell, it seems like this is I'm glad that his response was to try to be empathetic towards those that he laid off. However, this is where things get a little bit more where I get a little bit more critical of this guy, because that's not where it stopped. That's not where the buck stopped with this guy. It would be one thing if these individuals were laid off, if they were removed of their duties, and you go through the process of doing that, and this guy, he's emotionally impacted by it. He understands the gravity of the situation, of what he has, of the fact that he has just thrown people's lives into a bit of chaos. And yeah, I mean, I think that's fair if he gets a little emotionally upset about that, because no one wants to do that. And I think it would have been one thing if he, confided in his close friends and family and said, "Hey guys, I'm really down by the fact that I was put in a position where I had to do this." Even more so that it was due to from what he told us, it was due to his own actions. And so that would have been one thing. However, to make it this grand spectacle on social media, to post it the way that he did, to say that he wishes that he was a business owner that was only money driven and didn't care about who he hurt along the way, it comes off very unsympathetic of the individuals you just fired. It reminds me in a similar way of, if you've ever heard stories of individuals who maybe they've worked for a company for, a decade or a couple decades even. Maybe they've worked for a company for a while. And, that's not always a super common thing, especially nowadays. Like, that's not a super common thing. A lot of people will jump from job to job, and the value to a company of an individual who's willing to stick it out through the long haul and work alongside this company for potentially decades really cannot be overstated. And it kind of reminds me of when these things happen, maybe on their 15th or 20-year anniversary with this company. As a thank you, the company who they've been working for all these years and have been, sacrificing their time, has been providing surplus value for all these years. When that company, in exchange for that, just gets them like, a 15th or 20th anniversary pin, or gives them like a backpack, just something special to commemorate that. It's not that it's a bad thing to show the human side of this, to show that, hey, we appreciate you, or hey, that, in this CEO's case, to say, hey, I feel terrible that I had to do this. But it's another thing to not really display that emotion in the right way. In the case of this CEO, with this post, never once did he say, due to the fact that I've had to lay these people off, I feel terrible. And so what I'm going to do is directly link these people on this post and share them with other companies that would be a great fit for these individuals. He never said, hey, if you're looking for someone who is just a great bookkeeper, or hey, if you're looking for someone who is just the cream of the crop when it comes to online marketing, this is the individual you're looking for. That would have been, in my eyes, a much better response. Because, again, like I said, it's not a bad thing to say, wow, I've been put in this situation where I have to let these people off, and I feel terrible about it because I know that laying these people off is going to impact their lives directly in a likely negative way. That's one thing. But you have to understand that as the CEO of this company, you are going to be looked upon by everyone in the company, especially when you post something like this. And it just comes off very, very self-centered when you do this. And again, I don't know, maybe this guy did not intend for it to come off this way. I know that in a follow-up post, he mentioned something along the lines of, hey, I'm the crying CEO. I'm the one that posted this thing. It was not my intent to make it about me. It was not my intent to make it look like I only care about myself. And maybe that's the truth. Maybe he didn't mean to. I know that at times I've done and said things that come off in a way that is not it was not indicative of my true thoughts and feelings. It's not indicative of how I feel about the situation as a whole. But nevertheless, sometimes I put my foot in my mouth and I say things that I shouldn't. I do things that I shouldn't, and I just look like a kind of like a fool in that sense. And so I understand how we as individuals can do and say things that are not indicative of our true thoughts and feelings, and that's part of being human. I'm not going to tear this guy down because of that. Nevertheless, you have to understand when you are the metaphorical captain of this ship, when you are the CEO of this company, when you have all the eyes on you and you are at the top of this, so to speak, food chain, and all of your actions impact those below you, you have to understand, you have to really be on, have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, to put it lightly. And so, again, I don't want to, lambast this guy too much. I don't want to just dig into him because there's enough of that online. And I don't think it would be appropriate for me to just sit here and be like, wow, this guy is terrible. Look at all these terrible things he's done. He shouldn't have done this. How could he do this? Because one, I've made my fair share of mistakes as well. I'm not perfect. And so I understand how things can happen and how, we can do things we don't mean to, but I think this could be a great learning lesson for anyone who's in this situation in the future, because the reality is, there are going to be more layoffs happen in the future. There are going to be more CEOs that are faced with the decision of laying individuals off. There's going to be more CEOs faced with the decision of dealing a cataclysmic blow to people's lives, especially in a time like right now. I mean, I know it's been said 100 times over, but life is expensive. There are things that get in the way. Life is difficult. It's losing your job in a time like right now. Really, losing your job anytime is never an easy thing to go through, but especially right now when things are expensive, when life can be difficult. And these people that were laid off, they could have had families. They could have had individuals that they were caring for, that having this income and this job would have really helped them. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, this guy has to understand that, one, he still has his job. He has to understand that even though he's doing something that he doesn't enjoy, he cannot make this about himself. He still has his job. He is likely still getting compensated well. He still has the security of being the CEO of this company. And so with that, he has to understand that he cannot just walk around like it's all about him. And again, he may not have meant for it to look like that, but nevertheless, that's the outcome that has happened. That's what it looks like. So that's why I say, first and foremost, if you're ever in a situation like this, you have to understand that it's not just, you cannot make it just about you. You have to understand that in a situation like this, where you still come out on top, I hate to put it that way, but when you still have your job and others do not, when you still come out in the win column and others do not make it about the fact that you won or that you're still on top. Try to be as empathetic as you can to those that were dealt a loss or were not given the hand that you were given. I think that's important, especially as a CEO of a company, because everything that you do is indicative of the company as a whole. And this likely, I would imagine, is going to have a ripple effect on the people that are still working for this individual, I would imagine. So first and foremost, understand it's not about yourself whenever you are put in the position where you are on top and others are not. But secondly, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I think something he could have done and should have done, and I'm really surprised he didn't initially whenever he posted this, because it is on LinkedIn, is with it being LinkedIn, there are people, I will see people all the time say, hey, one of my friends has recently, lost their job, or they've recently come on hard times, or this or that thing has happened to them, and they're looking for new employment. If you're looking for this person, or if you're looking for a person to fill this role, they're the person for you. They're the one that you're looking for, and they would be a great fit. I've seen people do that all the time on LinkedIn. And I think that's a great part of LinkedIn, because people on here really do have wide-reaching impacts. And that is that can be one of the benefits of LinkedIn. I would imagine this guy does as well. I would imagine this guy, I mean, he's the CEO of a company. People obviously were drawn to his post. I would imagine that he has a wide ranging reach. But nevertheless, he could have taken this opportunity to say, I would have probably advised to not post the picture of him crying, but he could have said something along the lines of, I've recently had to make the difficult decision to let some people go. However, I don't want to allow this time of trouble and this time of grief for these individuals to not have any silver lining to it. So if you are looking for someone who is a fantastic office manager, or someone who is a great client relations manager, whatever, if you're looking for someone in these positions, reach out to, person A or person B, or let, this person know, because even though we had to let them go, I don't want to leave them without a job when I have these resources available to me. I think that would have been a fantastic post, a fantastic way to deal with this issue, because like I said, as a CEO, you're going to have to deal with things like this. Letting people off is never an easy thing or a fun thing to do. It's not something that I imagine really anyone that I've never had to lay anyone off, and I'm not a CEO. I'm not in that position right now. But I would imagine anyone that's had to do that, it's never an easy thing to do. And so if you can allow it to be a difficult decision for everyone involved, but also a way to allow the individuals, or to put the individuals that you've had to lay off in a better position, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. Because when you lay someone off, especially in an environment like we're in right now, it's not like you're just, think about it this way. Football season just recently started. And during games, teams will oftentimes have penalties given to them where they'll have to lose maybe 5 or 10 yards on a play. And that's never a good thing. But typically, those penalties are not things that are going to... They're typically not going to make or break a team. They're not a good thing, but they're things that can be overcome, and they can be turned into positives if you're able to overcome them. That is not what happened. That equivalent is not what happened here in this situation. And I think that should be the way that the CEO, and maybe any future CEOs, should look at this. Is, yes, you're having to do a bad thing. You're having to throw a penalty on this play. You're having to knock these people back 5 or 10 yards simply due to the fact that whether you've made a mistake in the company, or whether you don't have the funds to keep them around, whatever it is, things like this have to happen at times. However, you as the CEO, you as the individual who is making these decisions, you have the opportunity to look at these individuals and say, even though we've had to do this, make this difficult decision, even though we have had to put you in a position that is not great, it's not fun, it's not favorable, we want to do what we can. We want to do what we can to make this better. We want to do what we can to try and give you a soft landing as much as we can. We want to try and give you a safety net if we can. And it's never going to be perfect. It's not like it's not going to be a perfect regrouping for this individual every single time. But I think that is the very least you can do as a CEO, or someone who is in a position of prominence, is doing what you can to make right a wrong. And I don't want to say a wrong like this, because it's laying people off is a sad inevitability of the system we live in, but trying to make a difficult situation easier. I think this is a great way to do that. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice, is trying to understand the position that you're in. Understand that even if you're not a CEO right now, or even if you whatever, understand that whenever you're in a situation where others below you may be being set back, whether it's due to your doing or not, understand that it would be best for us to try and make these difficult situations easier for everybody involved. Because Even though it may not be you right now that's having to deal with this difficult situation, it could very well be you in the future. So that would be my second piece of advice is for this guy is to try and help these people find new employment, help these people land on their feet, even though you're having to make the difficult decision to let them go. And finally, the last thing I'll say is I know that this guy said in a follow-up post that he didn't want to make this about himself, and maybe he truly didn't mean for it to. We will never know. Some people have speculated whether he meant for it to or whether he truly didn't mean for it to. I'm not here to do that. But what I am here to do is to say, hey, if you don't want it to seem like it's about you, if you don't want to make this decision about you, then don't talk about yourself as much as you can. Don't post a picture of you crying. Don't post, the fact that you wish that you were a business owner who is only driven by the money, because this comes off very self-centered. It comes off as an individual who is trying to make this difficult time a sort of humble brag about them. It shows that it makes people believe that even though you are saying you don't want this to be about yourself, even though you are saying that you wish you didn't have to do this, it makes people believe who are on the outside looking in, and understandably so, that you really don't believe what you say. And again, we'll never know what was going through this guy's head. We'll never know his thought process, what he was thinking. We'll never know that. But what we do know is that this guy, who, again, I imagine he's a good guy. I imagine that he meant well, and I hope that he's been able to learn through this situation. The only thing we do know is what he shared with us. And what he shared with us was a post that did not come off as an individual who is really truly concerned about the individuals he just let go, but rather an individual. It makes it seem as if he is an individual who is wanting to revel in the fact that he is this benevolent CEO who is just extending an olive branch and is just filled with emotion and is just like you and me. That may be the case, but it doesn't seem to be that. It comes off very self-centered in my mind. And so those are the three things I would say, as a way to make things like this in the future better. Because again, there are going to be layoffs in the future. There are going to be CEOs and individuals that are in upper level management of companies that are going to have to make these difficult decisions. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that as the individual who is still coming out on top, as the individual who is still going to have their job, as the individual who is going to still be in a position of prominence and of comfort and of safety, you have to do whatever you can to not make it about yourself, but rather to deflect from yourself, and at the very least try to help the individuals who you've just laid off land on their feet. Do whatever you can to help them find a position where they can thrive, where they can learn from this experience, where they can take this time where they were dealt a tough hand and make the most of it. Because we're not promised an easy life. We're not promised employment for forever. We're not promised a life of safety and security all the time, 24/7. It would be naive to believe that. However, it's going to be tougher if we do it alone. It's going to be tougher if we make it about only ourselves and if we're only ever self-centered. And that is kind of the main takeaway from this, I believe, is that when we live in a way where it's all about ourselves, all about our own personal image, it's all about how we look and how people perceive us, that's going to be a tough world to live in. And I hope that, again, I believe that this guy, this CEO is a good guy. I believe that he's an individual who, I hope he meant well, and I hope that he's learned from the situation. But doing these things where it comes off very self-centered and one-dimensional and narrowly focused on ourselves, that is where the trouble comes in my mind. So I think that's all I've got for today. I just been wanting to talk about this. This has been something that has been on my mind lately, just because there've been a lot of layoffs. It's been something that's been talked about a lot, and I think it's something that whether you are, someone that's in a similar situation like this CEO, or maybe you have just been laid off, or maybe you haven't, wherever you find yourself right now, I think this is something that we can all learn from and take something away from. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I want to thank you for, if you've made it this far in the episode, I want to thank you for listening. If you would like to follow up on any other episodes of the podcast, I would greatly appreciate it. I would love if you were able to listen and check out any of the other episodes. If you'd like to follow me on any of my social medias, if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, I will put that link in the description. You feel free to get in contact with me however you like. You can follow me on Instagram, follow the podcast on Instagram. And if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoy the podcast, then don't hesitate to leave a review on whatever platform you listen to the podcast. It really does make a big difference. It's a great way to give me your feedback on if you're enjoying the podcast. And it really does help the podcast overall stay relevant. And just it continues to support the podcast, the show, and helps me to bring more content and hopefully better content in the future. So the link to this article that I've been looking at will be mentioned in the description. So if you'd like to check it out, it's there. If you'd like to, as I mentioned, if you'd like to follow along with me on social media or anywhere or with the podcast, that'll be down there. And yeah, again, don't hesitate to leave a review if you enjoyed, and don't hesitate to follow the podcast while you're at it. But with all that out of the way, thank you again for listening. I almost said watching. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. It really means a lot. And I hope that you'll tune in to the next episode of the podcast. See ya.